Hey guys, so welcome back to the Powerful Invitational. Today we have Vincent and Nestor with us. Vincent came down to talk about how he started CrossFit, what got him involved with the events and other events around the country, and why you should compete as a Masters, especially in those older divisions. There's a place for everybody, and we want to make people aware of that and encourage people to get more involved in fitness and CrossFit throughout the country. So Vincent, maybe start by introduce how we met and kind of what you got involved with CrossFit for and how it all started for you.
January 2016, or April 2016 actually, the Celtic Cup,
Yeah.
we both met. You were both volunteering and competing that year. I know that you won one of the first workouts. I volunteered that year and was my first CrossFit event. I'd never seen, been or done CrossFit before that day. I came on a Friday, we put up the rig together, myself and you, a grip rig and a lad, Alan Bolster, and we did that together.
Yeah.
And I met the community for the first time that night.
Yeah, so when I first met Vincent, he had no idea what was going on. He was out in the show centre in Swords and he was rambling around like a lost puppy. So I kind of introduced myself to him and asked him what he was here for, what he was doing and what he was helping with. And we ended up kind of having a bit of a chat and deciding what we were going to do and how we were going to help set up. And we ended up getting some equipment set up for the event and making a plan and getting some stuff stuck in. And then we ended up chatting over the time we were there. And then ever since then we've been friends and we've met at a lot of other events. We've judged at events together and he's come down to the gym and done some stuff. He done the 24-hour AMRAP here before where he worked out for 24 hours non-stop for a charity. How much money did you raise for that?
35,000
So
that
he
year.
raised €35,000 training on his own for 24 hours in the gym, and that's no mean feat. So if anyone else can do that, I'd be really impressed by it. So how did you start CrossFit in terms of like actual classes and competition? What made you stay involved with CrossFit and not give up?
So I started that year. A couple of weeks after I did the event, I said, I have to do this because I couldn't believe the standard. Young and old. Tig Lawless, I met Tig Lawless that day. He was only 14, I think, or 15 that day. He was competing with two people for an RF team. And I just found it incredible. And a few weeks later, I joined CrossFit Navan. I started to come to classes every day, straight away. Loved the mix of skill, fitness, the different fitness levels. Loved the community. Really liked how people were supporting each other right from the word go. Like when we met, no matter where I go to in a box, everybody supports everybody.
Yeah.
For me, it's a fantastic feeling to whether you're 15 or 55. That somebody is always pushing you or encouraging you or asking you to do something.
Yeah.
Really is good.
And what I see as well at events, it doesn't matter what age you are, everyone still engages and talks to each other. You're not just hanging around with 15-year-olds if you're 15, you're not hanging around with 45-year-olds if you're 45. Everyone engages and has a bit of crack together, so you're not segregated into age groups and stuff like that, which is I find really well. What was your first ever competition that you entered and took part in?
My first ever competition that I entered was, again, in Navan, 6 weeks later. It was a rookie competition and I finished fourth.
Very good.
Anto Jordan, for example, started at the same time. He came second that day. Paul Connolly won it that day. So it was a good standard of an event. It was a great event. I do a lot of judging, as you know.
Yeah.
And my first judged competition was here.
Yeah.
That same year.
Yeah.
That's where I fell in love with judging.
Yeah.
I liked that particular year. The atmosphere between the athletes was amazing.
Yeah.
Number one. It was the first time where I seen where you had treated judges really differently. From a fact, I had volunteered in about 6 events up until that, but never judged.
Yeah.
And you looked after judges to make sure the same way as an athlete was. Get your rest, get your food, get your coffee. Yeah. Don't spend too much time on the floor so you have your counts right. Supporting when somebody does something wrong as a judge, because we can. Yeah, you support that. Yeah. You make sure that the athlete and the judge knows immediately and it's fixed. Yeah. And when an athlete and the judge knows that immediately, it's better. Yeah. And those simple little things for me are good because then there's no mix up between athletes and there was never argo. And that was a good year also because we were outside. Yeah. So there was an inside-outside feel for that whole weekend. Yeah. And I loved it. I did the 2 days. Again, that day I fell in love with judging. Yeah.
So like a good few points that Vinny touched on, especially for the invitational and personally on a personal from our event, we like to try and raise the standard year on year and look over what we did wrong, what we did right, how can we improve the event as an entirety, but especially with the judges, people like Vinny travel the country year on year, and Elaine Ennis and stuff have set up a group of our judges now who we try to support as much as possible. And those guys give up a lot of free time, spend money traveling to events, and want to have the best possible outcome for athletes every year in terms of the success of the event and how fair it's run, and that athletes are aware of the workouts and what reps they have to do, and they feel comfortable when they walk onto that floor. And like Vinny said, we treat the athletes with respect, just like we do with the athletes, and the judges are compared the same. We want to make sure the judges are fully trained every year now, so we bring them in, we go through workouts, we go through the training, we let them have the opportunity to ask questions and make sure that they understand how the competition is going to be run from start to finish, and how the workouts are going to run, and where the layout of the workouts is going to be set up. So if people ask them questions, they have the answers there. Then they're ready for the workouts. If there's a mistake made, they know what it was, we can rectify it and talk between ourselves and understand that there's always going to be a solution if there is a problem made. Like Vinny said, we try to have enough judges that you'll get a break, you'll be rested, and you can enjoy the experience as well as do a bit of judging during the day. In terms of the Invitational, what have you seen as the Invitational, and why is that an event you would choose to judge at or take part in as an athlete?
I think the Masters is a big thing, because in a lot of events in Ireland, either Masters are not considered at all, or they are considered and it's like the bridesmaid.
Yeah.
Not even the bride, the bridesmaid. So there's no equal piece. The programming is not the same. And I think unless you're in the 35 to 39 Masters group, it's like you're, I don't know, a second-class citizen at best sometimes.
Yeah.
I found straight away with the events, because we entered it here for the Invitational, that it was different. First of all, in every category except for 45 plus, Masters are the same as Elite. So there's no difference. There's no difference in weight. There's no difference in workout. There's no difference in capability. And for me, that's important. 45 plus, which includes people in their 50s, are treated like the other end of scaled. But scaled is also not scaled in the Invitational. Scaled is not a beginner's comp. It's at the top of scaled or intermediate. You're not quite RX, but you want to be. You want to be. And I think that for me is one of the big points with the Invitational, is how they treat Masters. Yeah,
and this year we actually are bringing out like a proper beginner entry-level division. So if you're going to be in the scale division this year, you can be completely new to CrossFit and have no experience whatsoever in events. And then we'll have an intermediate division, like Vinny was saying there. It's like the higher end of scale, but you're not ready for RX yet. And then we'll have our RX. And then in the over 45s as well, like Vinny was saying, around the country, we don't see a lot of events that we try to cater for them in terms of like, they don't need to do air squats and sit-ups in a wall. They're able to do more than that. They need to be challenged in a way, and they want to be challenged in a way where the workers have pull-ups and toes to bar and snatching and maybe double unders, things like that, but not in a volume or with an amount of weight that's going to break them or injure them or damage them. They train every week in their box to enjoy those movements, and then they want to show their capacity of those movements in an event. Is that correct?
Exactly. I think, again, last year's competition, we had Christine McCann, who went to the Worlds for weightlifting at 52 years of age. So what, you're not cast aside because you're 45. And that feeling that the 45 plus is the same as everybody else is great. And I think that I've already heard this year that the 45s are banging down the door. And it's a good sign. This year's Open, there's double the amount of people in the Masters category than last year.
In the over 40s and the over 50s. We see a lot of new people coming along, and those people deserve an opportunity to represent their box, number one, and themselves, and build a team and come and showcase their skills on the floor, the exact same as the RX athletes and the younger athletes. Everything will be the same for you guys. The workouts will be very similar. Like we said, the volume out of the weight and the capacity may do will be a little bit less, but the workouts will be the same. You'll use the same equipment, you'll use the same rig, you'll use the same floor, you'll have the exact same setup as everybody else, so you'll feel and be treated the exact same. In terms of the Invitational, the over 45s is full this year, but we're going to open 4 more places because it is full. We agreed to do this interview about 5 weeks ago and there was nobody, and now it's full, so we want to actually sign up a few more, and we're going to make the competition a bit bigger, so we'll have an extra 4 places available. They'll be live from Sunday night to purchase if you want to buy one.
Get out there.
In terms of the evolution of competition in Ireland, what have you seen change over the last 3 years since you got involved with competition?
Yeah, first of all, judging has really stepped up. That's number one. But overall, the standard of athlete has hugely increased. Right the way across, from some of the teens that we're seeing now, some of the masters categories, Irish athletes are competing now at European level, whereas in 3 years ago, I did a lot of traveling with my job, and when I went into a CrossFit box in France, Germany or the Netherlands, it always seemed that they had more CrossFit athletes. Now you go to boxes and everybody has CrossFit athletes. Everybody wants to be a CrossFit athlete. No matter what standard you are, the goal is to be a CrossFit athlete. And for me, that's a big push. And so for me, the greatest change is in the mindset in CrossFit across Ireland. It's a big thing, and that's North and South. That's another big thing this year, to see the Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland treated as Ireland this year. Yeah, it's a big thing, because we are one community.
Yeah, and we do compete as one community over the events throughout the whole year. So you'll see guys come down from up north down to events down here, and you'll also see guys from down here travel up north to compete at events. So why should we not be on the leaderboard together in the open? It makes sense now that we all get to compete against each other, but also showcase our skills against each other and see where we rank as a country, as one unit, rather than to be divided, because that's what we do every event in Ireland anyway. So in terms of athletes travelling to events and the type of events they should pick throughout the year, what would you like to see as the evolution of Irish CrossFit and the standard of event in general in Ireland? We've seen over the last maybe 3 years a lot of new events start to form, and over different parts of the country, some in boxes, some in arenas, some in sports centres, some in halls, all different types of events. And what would you like to see, number one, as a judge, number two, as an athlete, and number three, if you're a spectator from the event organisers, what would you like to see them bring forward the event with?
If the sport is going to grow, it has to look after all three, first of all. And for me, spectator, whether that's husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, children, moms and dads, for me it's important for the spectator. The small boxes cater to that, but it can be small, but it can cater easily to the spectator. Some of the bigger events, the spectator is lost. Because it's very rarely taken on board. So I think one of the improvements for the bigger events is to not forget the spectator, because the spectator is a part of the community in sport. The judging has really stepped up the last couple of years, but still some events don't run on time. And for me, having an event not running on time, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even 20 minutes is one thing. But having an event run hours behind, having an event where you're in a group 7 and next thing you're in group 2 and you're pulled and you have to warm up early, for me it's not acceptable. And when you pay a ticket, whether it's €40 or €340,
it should be the same.
It should be the same.
And in terms of, like, from an athlete's point of view, it's really important for injury prevention and for food and warming up. If your heats are really late or off time, and if you were guaranteed a time before the event started, you're going to be in heat 11 and you were starting at 12 at lunchtime and you weren't starting until 3 o'clock, that's not acceptable if you're an athlete, because one, you can get injured, two, you can get sick from not eating properly. All that kind of stuff plays into it. Also, if you're a judge, the day is going to become longer now. If you're a spectator and you went to watch your box or your athletes or your friends, then you don't know what time they're competing at, so you can't actually be there on time for that. So those are the type of things that we're looking for when we run events ourselves, to make sure all of that stuff is catered for and on time. And before we go any further with this, I'd like to say that this is not like a negative thing with any other events. This is just an opinion we have, and a conversation we've had many times about how we'd like to bring the sport forward. Like myself and Vinny really like to help other gyms and other competitions, and if we can give advice, we can give advice. If we can go and judge, we'll go and judge. And if we can help organisers with equipment or lend equipment out, we'll do that kind of stuff. And if we're there to help set up, we'll do that stuff. It's people like us and Elaine Ennis and other people who are around the country who are supporting competitions, and the Filthy 150, the arena goes to a lot of events now. It's us guys here who are constantly driving the background scene, that want to bring the events forward, that will help all of the country. And if more people start to do that, everything will become better. That's the whole point behind this and understanding of this that we want to get out there. And there's a lot of events on now, so there's a lot of new events that have no real experience of running the event from start to finish. And if those people need help, people like me and Vinny or Elaine are there to reach out to and ask for help, and don't be afraid to do that, because that's what we're here for as well. In terms of the evolution of events in Ireland in general, I think you're going to see a big change in the type of events people go to, because people will start to tune into that I have to spend a lot of money on a ticket, I have to get a babysitter, I have to travel, I have to get a hotel room possibly, and I have to train specifically for that event because the standard is becoming higher now. So in terms of the athletes, the standard is becoming so high that if you're going to pick a few events of the year, you're going to really want to be on the ball if you're trying to win that event. So I think the standard of events will rise because other events are becoming better. So another event will see this and then try and improve themselves. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah. In the medium to large events last year, scaled, there's no beginners anymore in scaled. You're a progressive athlete now in scaled. You have to go to a beginners comp that says beginners, like Galway run the West. Yeah, they run some beginner comps. I know that Tullamore ran some beginner comps, but they say it. So now we have boxes actually saying this. So we see that. And I think in general, last year, events moved forward.
Yeah, it was the best year so far, I think, in terms of events and the amount of people that entered events, the amount of people that judged at events, the amount of people that kind of supported events by lending equipment to other gyms or other companies that ran events or whatever it is, and the amount of people that showed up to spectate as well, I think was a lot more than I've seen in previous years, especially at the big events. That brings us to another point with the invitational. What do you think of our qualifying system to make it fair, especially for beginner level athletes? They don't have to worry about elite level athletes or higher level athletes just buying a ticket for a lower level division just to win it. Does that, in your opinion, make it easier for a beginner level athlete to take part in the invitational?
Yeah, for me, the qualifiers year over year has set a standard. And it allows you to set the program and the correct program on the day. And in the last 3 years, I have seen nobody where you would say that person shouldn't be on the floor because they didn't know how to they didn't know how to do it. It just didn't happen. It just did not happen. And the qualifiers are important for that, especially if you're a beginner.
Especially if you're a beginner. 100%.
So all beginners, please do the qualifiers. It's a must. It's a must for you to understand the standard, and it's a must for Davey to be able to do the program.
100%. So a lot of events don't run a qualifier or run the system we run, and we're trying to improve the system every year, but we're also trying to make it more aware to people of why we run the system, how we run the system, and we're never going to stop running this system because the CrossFit scene in Ireland is just going to grow and grow and grow. There's going to be more people looking to get involved, and I'm never going to know all their names. When we started this 5 years ago, I knew everybody's name. I knew what they were able to do. I knew what they were able to lift, and I knew how to program for them, and I knew who was supposed to be in scale and who was supposed to be in RX. But now that's just virtually impossible because you see names on a spreadsheet and you've never even heard of them before. So you've no idea what level they're able to work out at. You know, you don't know what division they should be in. You don't know how old they are, all that kind of stuff. So if you do the qualifier, one, we get to see what you can actually physically do. So when we program the finals, we know that the beginner or the scaled category will have workouts that 1 will be challenging, 2 will be fun, but 3 will be safe. So you don't feel absolutely lost on the floor and only one person can do the stuff and you're totally just standing there embarrassed, especially in a big arena when everyone's looking at you and you're not able to do stuff and you don't want to be there. That's not the goal. The goal is to get out, get stuck in, be with your partner, be able to work as a team and enjoy the event. Then if you're a bit higher up in the qualifier, you'll be in the intermediate, so you'll be in the middle bracket. Again, we get to see what you guys can do through the qualifier. We know what level you're able to work out with. So when we program the finals, we'll know the level of workout you can participate in that will challenge you a little bit more than scaled, but won't be so hard that you can't actually do the stuff again. And then when it comes to RX, we all know now that the elite level athlete in this country is far beyond a beginner or a scaled athlete, and that has to be tailored for in a much different way than a beginner or an intermediate athlete who doesn't train full time or maybe just goes to the box 3 days a week. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So like that's the kind of mindset behind our qualifier and our qualifying process, and it understands that when you come to the event, you're not lost, you're able to do the workouts, you're able to participate, and every year if the different people enter, we can then tailor for different people again and make the qualifier up, and then we'll see what they do and then see what level they're at and make the program for the finals different again every year. So every year the competition will evolve if more people take part. That's the whole aim behind the qualifier. So just to wrap up, what do you think, Vinny, of the new venue and the setup for this year?
I'm very excited. I can't wait. I mean, to be honest, the atmosphere here in your own box is fantastic. Yeah. But saying that, you have so many people. Yeah. You have so many spectators. The event has just outgrown this box. It has to move. Yeah. And any athlete being able to compete in a bigger event is a dream. Yeah. That's what everybody wants. No matter what sport you do, you want to compete in the biggest events. Yeah. That's what you want. and you want to be able to have done it. It's not a tick box to say, oh, am I great?
Yeah.
It's a tick box
To say, I've achieved something great. That's something that I can check off my bucket list for the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
With the category grown to 3 times bigger than last year, it's going to be a challenge. But I hope that we meet it.
And in terms of the venue this year, like Vinny touched on a great point, is that he loves it in the box here, and so do we. We love the atmosphere. You can be close to athletes watching them. We've picked a venue that we can still replicate that, but just make it bigger. We haven't picked a venue that you're walking around completely lost, separated, segregated from your friends or your club. You're going to be able to watch your athletes from your box, still close enough. It's going to be such a volume of atmosphere in terms of the noise of the music, the athletes thrown down. You're going to be able to see everything. There's going to be a vendor village. There's going to be a massive warm-up area, so athletes can be prepared to put on a good show when they do go onto the floor. But in terms of everything, you'll still be able to hang around with your gym members. You'll be able to watch the athletes you have in. If you're a coach or a spectator and you want to watch your friends, it will still be the same box feel. Just imagine it being a bit bigger. There's more parking. There's now showers and change rooms. The event arena is just much more professional. So what you're going to be doing is competing at like a European or regional level in an event, but it's still going to have the atmosphere of your CrossFit box. That's the whole aim of the new venue and what we're trying to set up. So we're looking forward to it, and I'd like to say thanks for Vinny coming down today, taking his time out of his busy schedule to talk about the event and the over 45s and why you should compete in the Invitational and the future of Irish CrossFit, and hopefully you guys get on board and go to some events this year. Thanks, Vinny.
Thanks, Davey.